Hi friends, Prepared Suburbanite here. Getting towards the end of August, and it's been down here in the Carolinas, it's been just a brutally hot, muggy, a brutally muggy summertime. Temperatures in the 90s pretty much every single day in July. So far in August, pretty much every single day has been above 85 or 86 degrees. The humidity is pretty much unbearable, but you know what's starting to happen? The leaves are actually starting to turn. I'll show you a couple of clips, and I want to get into what's going on at the post office and my thoughts on that. So stick around. So some of the very first signs of fall are beginning to show up in some of the trees. If you look at the leaves on that dogwood right there, they are starting to turn a little bit reddish yellow right now. So I think it's fall is right around the corner. And here for the second tree, bush in our backyard, the leaves on that one are also starting to turn a yellow color, which is this particular bush is one of the first ones that goes in the fall and one of the first ones that obviously comes back in the spring. So what I generally like to do this time of year is drag out the generators, especially if I haven't used them, and pretty much it's been all summer, I haven't needed them. But bring the generators out, they're portable. Bring them out, start them up, let them run for 15-20 minutes until they get all warmed up and the oil circulates and all that. And then I set them in for another 3 months. If I don't use them, I'll bring them out around November or so and start them back up again just to make sure everything's running real well. There isn't any problems with it. Maintenance-wise, I think it's a good thing to do. My big household generator is on a timer to start up once a week for like every Monday morning for about 20 minutes or so, and it runs to circulate the oil and make sure everything's working properly. So those are some of the kinds of late summer things, maintenance-wise, that I do around here. The other thing that I just finished up doing, not today, but yesterday, was getting the lawn tractor all ready for the change of seasons. Oil change, air filter change, new spark plug, all that kind of stuff. Ran it for a while. Everything's going just great. So I think those are important kinds of things to do when you're involved in keeping your household up to date maintenance-wise. And it's really all part of being prepared and being a good prepper, is that you know how to do this kind of stuff, that you practice it religiously. I got a little log in the shop that I write down the dates that I did this generator startups and the oil changes and things like that. So it's a real good habit to get into, especially this time of year, and especially what we're heading into. You've got to be prepared. So today is August 23rd. It's a Sunday. In fact, it's Sunday morning. It's a beautiful day. Still a little hot, still a little humid. But yesterday, the House Democrats passed the Postal Subsidy Act, or whatever they wanted to call it, by a pretty wide margin. It's going to allow 25 billion, that's B with a B, billion with a B. It's to go to the post office to make sure that whatever is going on with the Postal Service stays basically the same, that they can invest, they can do whatever they need to do. The Postal Service has been losing money for a long time, but it's a service. It's not supposed to be a for-profit kind of a thing, but gee, I wish they'd at least come a little closer to break even than they are right now. So they've really taken the not-for-profit moniker to a whole new level. But yesterday, the House passed a resolution, passed a bill to allocate $25 billion to the U.S. Postal Service. Now, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, knows full well that it's not going to even get heard in the Senate, and if it does get heard in the Senate, the President has already threatened to veto this thing. So why all the hoopla? Why did she find it necessary to call back the House of Representatives for a special session during their August recess? Well, the only thing that I can think of, and this is my opinion only, was that she's trying to set this election up, blame some stuff on the post office, and then say, oh, you darn Republicans, we passed $25 billion so that you'd have all the tools necessary to process all these mail-in ballots the way they're supposed to be done, and you didn't pass the bill, you vetoed it, whatever happened, so it's all on you if something goes haywire with this year's election. Now, there's a lot of stuff floating around right now on the internet. I saw it on my wife's Facebook a couple of different ways over the last couple of days. What happens if the election results cannot be certified before Inauguration Day in January 2021? Well, there's all kinds of stuff floating around that they just maybe have to wait until they could certify the election results. But some folks are starting to bring up the Presidential Secession Act. Now, the Presidential Secession Act, the Constitution allows the Congress to provide by law in the case of removal, death, resignation, or inability of both the president and the vice president at the same time, okay? So, if they're both incapacitated, if they both resign, if they're both like killed in an airplane crash or whatever, and there isn't anybody, there isn't anything else, the Presidential Secession Act of 1792 called for the President pro tempore of the Senate would be first in line, followed by the Speaker of the House, in case both the President and the Vice President were unable to fulfill the responsibilities of their offices. Now, pro tempore, interesting Latin term, it means for the time being, literally translated, or as close to literal as you can get. And it really serves as just a placeholder. And by that, I think everybody's talking that the President pro tempore is appointed or elected or selected to just be in line for the presidency pursuant to the Secession Act, Presidential Secession Act of 1792. And that was the law for quite a long time, up until 1886. President Grover Cleveland signed into law the Presidential Succession Act of 1886, and that removed or substituted the cabinet secretaries for the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. So in order of their departmental creation, the succession would be the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Treasury, the Secretary of War, the Attorney General, etc., etc. That's how they saw it needed to be done in 1886. It was passed in Congress and signed into law in 1886 by Grover Cleveland. Shortly after World War II, Harry Truman, President Truman, signed into law the Presidential Secession Act of 1947. And what that did was restored the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House as being next in line, but in reverse order, meaning that the Speaker of the House would be first and the President pro tempore of the Senate would be second, and then the cabinet members, the cabinet secretaries, starting with Secretary of State, etc., etc., etc. And that's kind of the way it is right now. There's only been a couple of times in recorded history that these things have really had to kick into place where there was a chance that both the president and vice president were not sitting in their offices. But it's there. The current law is the one from 1947. Now, with that said, there are some constitutional issues with respect to the constitutionality of the Presidential Succession Act of whatever year. And it's pretty technical. Originalists may get it. I'm not sure that it's germane to this particular talk, but it's basically saying that a member of Congress, a senator or a representative from the House, can't be in both places at the same time. They can't be on the legislative side and on the executive side at the same time, and there's some background for that that's kind of way up here for a non-constitutional opinion that I've got here. But here's what the latest iteration of this really is. And I don't know if this is going to work out this way or not, but let's just say that the presidential election, in fact the whole 2020 election slate, is not able to be certified because the votes are still outstanding. They're in the post office, they're somewhere here, they've been lost in the mail, there's been finger pointing, there's court cases going back and on. So the Congress and the House are unable to certify the election results. Now it's election day, January, whatever it is, 2021, and there is no duly elected certified president or vice president. So what happens then? There isn't anybody to take the seat. What are you going to do? You go to the Presidential Succession Act, the most current volume. And it says the Speaker of the House would be next in line. Well, guess what? There is no House. See, House members are elected every 2 years. 2020 is that year. Okay? So none of them have been elected because the election can't be certified. Therefore, there cannot be a Speaker of the House who is nominated, elected, selected, whatever the word is, to be the Speaker of the House by the members of the House of Representatives. So if they can't certify the election, there isn't any valid House of Representatives out there, therefore there can't be any vote, and the Speaker of the House doesn't exist. Therefore, it would fall then to the President pro tempore of the Senate, who right now is Chuck Grassley, a Republican from Iowa. I think it's kind of interesting to dig into all these little things about presidential elections and what's going to happen and why the political process is doing what it's doing. I don't know what the final results are going to be. I don't know if the post office is going to be able to deliver all the votes. I don't know which states are actually just going to do a mass mailing to every address in their state with a ballot to just fill out and send in. That seems irresponsible to me. I think absentee voting is okay. And if you're deathly afraid of going out in public, you can request a ballot by mail. You fill out a form, you request it. It comes in the mail, you fill it out, you mail it back, or you take it to a drop box. I'm okay with that. I've voted absentee in the past because when I was traveling a lot as a consultant, I wasn't even in the state. So I voted absentee, I think, on a couple of different occasions, and did early voting on a couple other occasions. But that doesn't mean that my particular state, wherever I happen to be living at the time, would just en masse mail out ballots to everybody who has an address in the state and hope that somebody is a valid voter. I don't know. Anyway, I think it's important to understand all these kinds of things because I think it makes us more prepared once we understand what may happen, what could happen, and all those oddball things that are going on out there. I know how I'm going to vote, and I don't know if it's going to be in person or absentee ballot because there's still about 70 days or so to the election and a lot of stuff can happen. So I'm keeping my options open, but my plan is to be there in person. I don't think it's any more difficult than going to the grocery store or going to Walmart. Just wear a mask, go in the place, fill out your ballot, have it certified. You're done. You get a little sticker to put on your shirt. There you go. This is the Prepared Suburbanite, reminding you to be prepared always and pay attention to the political news. I'll see you all on the next video.